It was a day to celebrate the enduring ideals of our great nation. And it was the day for my last farewell to Anne, my dear wife, and to life itself. For it was on this day, in my 35th year, that my spirit was finally freed from the ravage of the great killer of my time, tuberculosis. On this same day, Anne, with the help of my colleague, Frank Riddle, made a final image of my departure from this stage of life, a likeness of the flesh, but made of clay, a death mask. And it is particularly appropriate to my life. For you see, my work and my dreams in life were also made of clay. But pray, do not pity my early death. Rather, rejoice that I, Artus Van Briggle, potter of clay, realized my own modest dreams in life. And these dreams found form in pots. Pots many have come to flatter as art.
To many of us, pottery conveys images of red clay pots, flower vases, or perhaps garden ornaments. Things to be enjoyed, but of little consequence in the larger scheme of life. Art pottery might refine our image to suggest more delicate designs, worthy of gallery or museum display, but ultimately still objects of minor consequence to our lives. But pottery has in fact had an abiding and broad significance in connecting our cultures and our very humanity across the ages. Pottery has historically served man's daily life needs, and has served to record many cultures across thousands of years. Viewed through the lens of time, potters have been artisans, artists, and historians, providing windows into the lives and souls of those who came before us. Artus Van Briggle, born March 21, 1869, died July 4, 1904, was a man of this tradition. Men whose lives and dreams are literally made out of clay. But his achievements are larger than he would have declared himself. An innovative and creative force in art pottery is his legacy to us. But he was also a master painter, a sculptor, and an Art Nouveau designer, bringing new colors and designs from nature herself to art pottery. Like his own life, Artus Van Briggle was born and lived in a rare, quiet period in American history. Fittingly, his work reached its pinnacle at the apex of appreciation for the beaux arts in America and Europe. It is perhaps a gentle irony that the epitaph to his death was the threshold of a new era of massive American industrialization and technological development. He obtained recognition in his lifetime, a rare gift for master artists, and his works and designs continue to be appreciated and enjoyed today. Who was this quiet artist, and what led him to dreams made of clay? Artus Van Briggle was born in 1869, 4 years after the end of the Great Civil War. He would not know war in his lifetime, a remarkable event for any generation. He was the eldest of the 3 children of Eugene and Martha Van Briggle. He and his sisters, Leona and Neva, lived in the aptly named small town of Felicity, Ohio, southeast of Cincinnati. The family was comfortable in the working-class simplicity of their times. It was here that Artus began his dreams, not knowing then that they would become reality.
Happily, my family's background in artisan trades gave additional encouragement to me and my sisters. But as I grew older, I knew I could not realize my fullest possibilities as an artist without formal instruction. When I was 17, in 1886, I received an opportunity to move to Cincinnati, some 30 miles from Felicity, where I gained an apprenticeship at the Avon Pottery. I could thereby also advance my painting ability at the Cincinnati Art Institute.
Artus would not have imagined it at the time, but the move to Cincinnati would also set his future path to travel and study in the great art centers of France and Italy. Artus's skill and creativity were soon noted, and he advanced quickly. By 1887, he had moved to the nearby larger Rookwood pottery, decorating bowls and vases and continuing to paint and develop his own designs in a studio at his home. And with his success and improved means, his parents and sisters also moved to Cincinnati that year. While at Rookwood, Artus attended the School of Design at the Cincinnati Mechanics Institute, where he became intrigued with pottery glazes, the crowning glory to any pottery design. He also continued to paint in his home studio. A portrait of his grandmother was entered in the Chicago World's Fair Exposition in 1893 and was considered to be master caliber. In what would be a pivotal event in his life, Artus's work at Rookwood came to the attention of the owner, Maria Longworth Nichols. Maria appraised Artus as a gifted potter and painter and followed his progress closely. This patronage would endure and would affect Artus's direction as an artist, in finding his future wife, and perhaps even in his fate of an early death. Artus's talent so impressed the owner of Rookwood that in July of 1893, when he was 24, Maria personally arranged for his travel to Paris to study at the Julian Art School and at the Beaux Arts Academy.
It's impossible to describe the adventure of this journey, the anticipation of being in the great art centers of Europe, of studying in the shadow of past masters while learning from masters of the day. I remained in Europe from 1893 to 1896, learning, dreaming, and developing my skill as a painter.
But he would return home with a commitment to art pottery as the focus of his life's work, for it was in the Louvre Museum in Paris that Artus saw and became enchanted with the mystical, flat matte glaze of the Ming Dynasty pottery. The secret of this glaze died with its 13th century creators. Fascinated by the soft velvet-like finish, it was the start of Artus's passion to rediscover this beautiful, unique glaze.
I was graced with 3 years to study and travel, from Paris to Venice, observing, learning, living an artist's life. And I was doubly blessed as a man, for in 1894, I met Anne Lawrence Gregory.
Artus and I found that we shared much as artists, and we soon found we also felt a bond beyond our shared love of art. Though more comfortable to be the painter than the subject, Artus relented for a portrait, which I painted in Paris in 1894.
I continued my studies of painting and sculpting, but my mind pondered the mystery of the dead matte glaze that I had so admired in Ming Dynasty pottery. Anne had become a part of my life, and to my great happiness, she accepted my proposal of marriage. We became engaged in Paris in the summer of 1895.
Had I known what was to befall dear Artus, I would have wished our marriage to occur far sooner than it did.
Artus returned to Ohio and Rookwood in 1896. Now 27 years old, he was accomplished as a painter and a sculptor. He continued to create and paint designs at Rookwood by day to earn his living, And he experimented at night as he began to pursue the challenge of resurrecting the secret of the dead matte glaze that so fascinated him. Maria Longworth Nichols often followed the current European trend of throwing masquerade parties. Rookwood would come alive with all sorts of characters. Artus enjoyed his stately role as Uncle Sam. 28-year-old Anne also returned from Europe in 1896, living with her aunt in Pennsylvania, where she taught art while she and Artus planned a marriage in which they could rely on their art to support a livelihood together. While Artus and Anne planned for their future life together, Artus had begun to feel the harbinger of a different fate, even as he became more possessed with recreating the Chinese dead matte glaze.
I continued my experiments to replicate the delicate ancient glaze. The hours of toil and my failures were many. But with each disappointment was also a lesson. I finally realized more promising results for designs I prepared in 1898, including early versions of my Lorelei, the final design of which, I confess, I was most pleased. I was excited at my progress with the glaze, but I now found it harder to make my body stay the course of the long hours required to work at Rookwood by day and at home by night. My body was making me think and deliberate about things I did not want to know. The doctor put a name to what could not be changed or cured. I had tuberculosis. I would now have to find a more favorable climate, a drier climate, to hold back the progression of this new master of my body. I still had much work to do to achieve the glaze I so desperately sought. Strangely, the curse of my disease would bring me the blessing of my new home, Colorado Springs, Colorado, at the foot of Pikes Peak. I arrived there in 1899. I was 29 years old. I could not bring my kilns and potter wheels and the many tools available to me at Rookwood, but I could easily carry my dreams. I hoped the dry climate of my new home would allow me to push my body to the level of energy my dreams demanded.
With the hospitality of friends, Artus lived in Colorado Springs, as well as at Chico Basin Ranch, some 30 miles southeast, during his first year in Colorado. Trying to regain his strength, Artus continued to work, both painting and always experimenting further to perfect the ancient glaze. It was in his first year in Colorado Springs that Artus produced the significant work, Despondency, which would later receive wide acclaim by art critics. This striking piece was done as an expression of Artus's frustration with his health and the knowledge that his life's work would be cut short. Artus's acquaintance with William H. Strebe, head of the Colorado College Chemistry Department, proved most helpful to his continuing experiments with the dead matte glaze. Professor Strebe provided Artus a small laboratory and an assayer's kiln to perform his experiments and fire the different formulas for the matte glaze.
I often walked the lands in and around Colorado Springs, looking for samples of clay to blend with the clays I had imported from other regions. Even at my lowest times, the colors and patterns of the Colorado hills were a constant inspiration to my designs.
It was likely in this time that Artus completed the design for his Lorelei, and also achieved the recreation of the ancient glaze, performing an alchemy of his own in the basement chemistry lab at Colorado College. With help from his longtime friend and patron, Maria Longworth Storer, remarried after her first husband's death, Artus built a backyard pottery behind his residence on Nevada Street, so he could take on help and produce larger quantities of works.
In 1900, at long last, I also arrived in Colorado Springs, having secured a position teaching art at the local high school. Of course, I worked to help Artus bring the pottery to a state of operation in which we might pursue it as our livelihood.
By the spring of 1901, Anne and I had made much progress, and I had at last completed the final rendering of my Lorelei design with the matte glaze.
While our marriage vows were still to come, I designed a symbol of the merging of our lives, a double A for Artus and Anne, contained in a frame of oneness. Things were going very well. Artus sent several completed pieces to his friend Maria Storer, who was with her husband in Spain. She showed the works to art experts in Europe, who pronounced them a supreme discovery in modern ceramics. In December of 1901, Artus and I achieved a further milestone in our efforts to make the pottery our livelihood. We had completed some 300 pieces, which Artus deemed satisfactory for public exhibition and sale. We were very gratified with the response. The entire exhibition, every piece, quickly sold.
Anne and I worked long and hard, side by side, into the summer of 1902. Now, it was time to declare our two lives as one. We could now marry, with a growing business to sustain our future together.
Artus and I were agreed that our marriage would take place among the natural beauty which had provided materials and much inspiration for our work. We selected a quiet spot outside Colorado Springs near Star Ranch at the base of Cheyenne Mountain, gathering a few close friends and a kindly minister, Reverend Orms.
Anne and I completed our union in the fitting setting and beauty of a Colorado meadow, matched only by the depth and beauty of our love for each other. Anne and I knew my illness was a dark shadow over our future. But on this day, our hearts ruled our thoughts, thoughts of happiness and hope.
Artus and Anne were 33 years old at the time of their marriage. They would not reach their third anniversary together.
We made a sculpture of our hands on the Lorelei to symbolize our partnership in life and in work, even as Artus's health seemed to taunt our hopes and ambitions. It was to be a new symbol for our business, but time did not allow the change to take place. We kept the double A.
His health required a month's stay in a Denver sanitarium soon after the marriage. But Artus returned to work even harder with Anne to expand the pottery's commercial production capability. Activity and production did increase further with the addition of two new staff members in 1902. 19-year-old Frank Riddle, a former art student of Anne's, and Ambrose Schlegel, a master thrower of pottery. Their addition relieved Artus and Anne to create new designs for production. In another key event in 1902, Maria Storer gave a boost to Artus and Anne's fledgling business. She helped organize a stock issue in Colorado Springs, forming the Van Briggle Pottery Company, making Anne a certificate holder and bringing a much-needed infusion of local funds and support to the business. Other local notable participants in the stock company included General William Palmer, the founder of Colorado Springs, and W.S. Stratton, a prominent resident who had made his fortune in Colorado gold mining.
The pottery was progressing ever better. Now we even shipped works to be sold outside of Colorado. Artus's health greatly troubled me, but he would not cease his work. He produced many new, wonderful Art Nouveau designs, and he was receiving more recognition at home and abroad.
In a final act of her patronage of Artus's career, Maria Storer used her influence and contacts to prepare the way for an invitation to Artus to submit his best works to the esteemed Paris Salon exhibition of 1903.
We selected 24 pieces to be shipped, in hope that a few might meet the stringent standards of the exhibition.
Artus and Anne need not have worried. All 24 pieces were accepted for the upcoming Paris exhibition. Artus's health continued to decline. He was not strong enough to make the journey to Paris for the exhibition. But he continued to try to work when he could, resting when he could not.
In February 1904, we were informed that the Paris Salon awarded 2 gold, 1 silver, and 12 bronze medals to Artus's work. One piece, Despondency, was purchased by the Louvre Museum itself for the remarkable sum of $3,000.
Artus's work, Despondency, still remains on display at the Louvre today, sharing the honor with the Ming Dynasty pottery that inspired him to recreate the matte glaze, which became the hallmark of his work. On the heels of success at the Paris exhibition, the Van Briggles entered several pieces in the St. Louis exposition of 1904. His health again preventing attendance at the exposition, Artus and Anne were greatly pleased to learn in March 1904 that 2 gold medals, 1 silver, and 2 bronze had been awarded for the exceptional designs and remarkable velvety matte glaze of the pieces.
Artus and I traveled to Tucson, Arizona in the winter of 1904, hoping the milder climate might promote some relief to his worsening condition. But Artus could not get the pottery out of his mind.
My dear Riddle, write me the following formulae. Sagar glaze, inside glaze. The colors I decided on before I left. I am not sure that I changed my notes when we made the slight alterations in the Sagar and inside glazes. The weather down here is like Colorado in midsummer. The cottonwoods are green and fruit trees in blossom. Mrs. Van Briggle accuses me of being homesick, but she herself confesses that it will seem very nice indeed to get back there. Mrs. Van Briggle joins me in very kindest regards. Yours faithfully, A. Van Briggle.
Artus and Anne returned to Colorado Springs. But his health had not improved. He was dying. Ever the quiet one, Artus had profoundly mastered his craft and fulfilled his dream of recreating the matte glaze of his ancient fellow potters from China. He merged all this into his own Art Nouveau designs. He established the Van Briggle Art Pottery, combining commercial and gallery art production. He won acclaim from the general public and renowned art critics at home and in Europe. Various commentators have described the qualities of his art. One writer said his works are a constant rest and delight to the eye, something entirely new. Another admirer wrote, "The blending of colors in the glaze is something of which the rainbow itself need not be ashamed." And perhaps capturing the magic of his work the best, a commentator declared, "Conceivably, Van Briggle's most creative and ingenious accomplishment was to develop formulas and techniques for producing these soft finishes, many with the sheen of rich cream, a few so powdery matte that the hand automatically reaches out to brush away the dust." Artus Van Briggle died July 4, 1904, but his works and his legacy live on. Following his death, Anne continued to run the pottery operation. She and others developed the idea to build a new pottery dedicated to the memory of Artus. The new facility was also needed for efficiency and expansion purposes. She hired a Dutch architect from New York and finally approved his old world design in 1907. At the corner of Uinta and Glen, land was given for the new building by General Palmer, and construction began in 1907. The facility was completed 18 months later. It would be the home for Van Briggle pottery until 1968, when the property was sold to Colorado College. The current location was purchased in 1953 as a second production site, and later became the current headquarters for Van Briggle pottery when the memorial building was sold. It is 100 years since the first Van Briggle pottery on Nevada Street. Many changes have occurred, including the current site of the Van Briggle art pottery, but the Van Briggle legacy continues. And the work goes on. And the dream goes on.
My passing occurred at the dawn of the 20th century, when man's dreams gave him flight into the air. Now it is the dawn of a new millennium, and man's dreams reach to the very limits of our universe. It is fitting that this great nation continues to celebrate high ideals and to foster the dreams of its people, large dreams and small dreams alike. Even dreams made of clay.